Let's go on to chapter 9 and program design. We're still looking at arrays. Now what they've got you looking at is how to sort the array and then how to search for stuff in the array. So in chapter 8 we built the arrays and so we could print stuff out of them, but in chapter 9 we're going to look at sorting the array. So they give you several different types of sorts. They talk about a bubble sort, a selection sort, and an insertion sort. They give you those algorithms on it. So let's talk about the bubble sort today, and then we'll glance at the other sorts on it, the selection sort and the insertion point sort. On it. With the bubble sort, what you will do in that one is you're going to compare two elements and see where they are, how they are related, if they're in order. And that your object is to sort the array into either an ascending or descending order. With the bubble sort, you're going to look at the first two elements, and let's assume we want an ascending order. You're going to look at the first two elements, see if the first one's less than the second one. If it is, then those two elements are correct. Now that doesn't mean that they're in their ultimate position, but compared to each other, they're correct in order. If they're not, we're just going to swap them. And we're going to swap the whole row of the array. So that if this was the key that we wanted in the order by, if number 1 and number 2 are out of order, so we compare this one to this one. If they're out of order, you're going to have to move all 4 items, get switched. Now, to do that, you're going to have temp positions. So you're going to move them to a temporary location. In their example here, they just got an item in there. They had the thicker one on the bubble sort. These are just one item arrays. Okay, so that's what they've got. Okay. They've just got a one item array, so they're not complicating this. So, let's skip out some of this. I was going to make it more complicated than what it is. So, item 1's got to be switched with item 2. What you're going to have to do is set a temp variable there. Set up a temp variable for yourself for when you got to switch them. You'll put item A into the temp variable, which they're doing in a swap module. Temp equal A. Because that's got the index plus index plus 1. So this one has got a subscriptive index, and this one's index plus 1. Because we started off at index equals 1. Index plus 1 is greater than, is less than index. So to do that, then you'll set temp equals whatever your variable is. So I'll call it variable, parentheses, index. Then you're going to set variable parentheses index equal variable
Deferred double boost. You might think that saves a few seconds.
index plus 1. Because here's what's happening. We're taking that first one and we're going to put it in a variable called temp. Now we still know that value. So now we're going to put the second one into the first position, which is what we want, because we're wanting to switch the first and the second. And then last, we will make variable index plus 1 equals to temp. Because it then takes the value of the first one. Sort of like on how you're doing the swap. If that parking lot was full out front, all the parking spaces were, well, they don't all have to be taken. But we look at the parking lot out there, and that Todd decides he wants to park his car in the space where my car's parked. Okay? One, it's not going to be real smart, Todd, to just run into my car and push it out of the way, okay? We want to keep both cars intact. What are we going to have to do to switch his and my car on a parking space? Because he wants me in his parking space, and he wants to be in my parking space. What would we have to do that? And how could we do it easily on it? Rather just Todd or me goes out there and switches the cars, or even both of us go out there and switch the cars. What's going to be required to pull the process off? We're going to have one other place to stick the car temporarily, one of the cars, right? Because if Todd gets in his car and he says, okay, he's going to back out of his parking space. He's going to park in another parking space temporarily, right? Then I can back out of my parking space, park in Todd's parking space, and then Todd will pull out of that temporary space and park in my parking space. Everybody follow on that? But we had to have an extra parking space to pull it off, right? Or else we got to have the space on the road and block traffic while after Todd backs out of his space and sits there blocking traffic until I get over there, park in his space, and then he can go fill in my space. Does everybody follow on that? There's got to be a place to stick that car at in the process. Everybody see on that? And you got to do that in real life occasionally. For instance, you got to move cars around. If you're working someplace where you work on cars or have various cars there, you may well swap cars in and out as you're doing work for the day. Okay? Here, we're going to take the first one, stick it in a temporary position. Take the second one, put it in that first position, and then take what's in the temp position and put it back into the second position. Then we've got these two in order. Everybody follow on that? Then you're going to compare the next two and the next two. However, you don't have the whole thing finished at this point. With the bubble sort, you got to keep going through it. So you've got to set up a loop there to loop through this thing multiple times to get them into their positions. Actually, I just told you wrong on that one. How did they do this thing? Oh, that's the dissimilar one. No wonder that one confused me. Here, wrinkle one. So the first time too, we're going to do that. And then we're going to do it again. We're going to have to loop through that thing depending on the number of items that's in the array. So it's grossly inefficient, but it gets the job done. Because if this had been 3, 1, 5, 7. First time through, we would have, after it, the 3 and the 1 we would have switched. So now it's a 1, Actually, it does work right there on that one, so let's throw some other number here. So we'll throw a 1 down here. So we've got a 3 and an 8. We're going to switch to 3. That's correct. We're going to switch the 8 and the 6. So now we've got 3, 6, 8, and 1, but those two get switched, so that becomes 1 and 8. So after the first time through, we ended up with that. Second time through, we'll switch to look at 3 and 6. Those are fine. 6 and 1 will get switched, and now that's 3, 1, 6, 8. The third time through, we actually get it in order. So that is now 1, 3, 6, 8. Now, if we had 100 things in there, y'all can see we'd have to run through this thing 99 times to get it in order. Y'all follow on that? So it's not efficient, but it does the job. It's simple, intuitive, and that you're going to set up 2 loops and you're just going to loop through the entire count multiple times there. And it's going to take multiple moves to get them in position. Now, once they're in position, as it looks at each one of them, it's only going to do the swap routine, this, if the 2 of them are out of position. So you're going to be comparing 2 values at a time, back and forth, all the way through it. But that's with a bubble sort. The bubble sort, notice what happened right there. It just sorted that 1 bubbled up to the top, which is why it's a bubble sort. It didn't go straight to the top, it moved gradually along on it. Now, to do it though, remember, you got to have a swap routine and you got to have a temp variable. Most often, you're going to see that temp variable called temp. Because it's not used for anything else. It's just a temporary holding spot there to temporarily hold the value while you're switching. Questions on that? Y'all see how the bubble sort's going to switch them back and forth and take you through? Now, the speed of computers, even though it's not efficient on doing that, still gets it done relatively quick unless you've got a huge array of information sitting there. But if you've got millions of records, yeah, you'll see the time in it. If you just got 100 records or less, it's going to look like it did it immediately because of how fast you're processing it. Because this is all processing that's occurring here. Questions on how the bubble sort works? Y'all got the part on how the swap works? Because that's the part that usually has the hardest time for people, is understanding you need that temp variable there as a temporary place to store the value while you're switching them. Because you can't just switch them. You got to stick it somewhere temporarily while the other value gets moved in. All right, any questions on that? Wednesday, let's do the selection sort Wednesday and go through it and see how it works. And talk about it, because we've got 2 weeks to work over the chapter. So we can do the selection sort Wednesday, and then next Monday we can do the insertion sort, and then we can just do a binary search on next Wednesday. And the binary search is relatively simple of how to go in and find an item in there. Questions on that?
I am having trouble with arrays. I'm not sure how to assign each value to a string.
Wait a minute, try that again.
Whenever you're working with arrays and it's a string array, how are you supposed to assign each value?
Because you're going to have to assign, when you're doing it in Flogorithm, you're going to have to assign them one by one. So you're going to have to,
So
you're going to have to set,
four.
You can't just set a list there like they show you in the book. You can't just say array equals DW SW DS on it to assign the three values to it, okay? You'd have to say that array 0 equals
How would I do
DW.
that in Flowrhythm though?
Huh?
How would I do that in Flowrhythm though?
Which, this part,
Yes.
this will work just fine in Flowrhythm. Okay? You can't do, this won't work in Flowrhythm, assigning the whole group of them, but you can assign individual values to the array in Flowrhythm. Which, if we go back to my example for that chapter, that I put out there, chapter 8, which is what I did in class, because I saved what I did in class for y'all. Chapter 8 example. We set up a loop here that index from 0 to 9. I set cells and equal to the value. Now, if you were setting it to a string value, the only difference is you just put the value of quote DW quote or whatever.
So, wait a minute.
Hmm?
So I'd have to put a for statement.
Yeah.
For statements, and then I also have to declare another value. Does it have to be an integer?
Hmm?
Does it have to be an integer? Index?
Index has to be an integer because that's the keeps track of which item within the array we're talking about. Now, what's in the array is a different thing. So if I'd wanted to put names in there, I would have just put name index, and in that case, we're going to put a bunch of watts in this thing. And that right there, Brandon, works for us putting strings in. Name.
Is the index in
Name of
parentheses
the,
up there?
huh?
Is index in parentheses?
And I'm using index, just like I did here. So I've already created it.
No. I'm saying is it in parentheses on right beside name?
Yeah. So it's name parentheses, index parentheses. Because that tells us which element in that name array. Now, actually, I did fail to do one thing up here, but it didn't hang me on it, but if I'd gone to run it, it would have hung me. Is that I would have needed to declare the array up there at the beginning. And then I would have made it a string array. I would have done an assign. That's not an assign. Then a declare. The name is an array and it would have been string and 10 items in it. I would have clicked OK. And that would have perfectly worked fine for me doing a string and a number array in that program.